has reconvened from a recess which was occasioned by the repeat presidential election, but of course it fell within the calendar of the National Assembly. This afternoon, the House is going to sit, coming hours after news did break of the demise of Nyeri Governor Wahome Gakuru, and the members of Parliament, they have been discussing events that arose after the demise of the governor. And Nyeri County is represented in this National Assembly by 6 constituencies: Nyeri Town, Hodhaya constituency, Mukurweini constituency, Tetu constituency, Madeira constituency, and Kieni constituency. Of course, it is a very big loss for the members of Parliament from Nyeri County, as well as Nyeri residents and the country as a whole. This afternoon, the House will be getting into business, discussing a motion as well as the second reading of a bill. But just to mention, the House has a total of 349 seats, but currently only 348 have been occupied so far. The remaining one, Kitutu Chache South constituency, is conducting its elections today, and hopefully after the exercise is done, then the House will have the required number of 349 constituencies. This afternoon, there will be a motion on the adoption of session on paper number 5 of 2016 on the National Climate Change Framework, that this House adopts session of paper number 5 of 2016 on the National Climate Change Framework Policy laid on the table of the House on Wednesday, October 11th, 2017. This policy was developed to facilitate a coordinated, coherent, and effective response to the local, national, and global challenges and opportunities presented by climate change. An overarching mainstreaming approach has been adopted to ensure the integration of climate change considerations into development planning, budgeting, and implementation in all sectors and at all levels of government. This policy, therefore, aims to enhance adaptive capacity and build resilience to climate variability and change while promoting a low-carbon development pathway. That is the session of paper on the National Climate Change Framework Policy, which will be debated. It is a motion which will be moved by the leader of the majority party. Also this afternoon, there will be the second reading of the Physical Planning Bill, National Assembly Bill number 34 of 2017. The bill gives effect to Article 66(1) of the Constitution, which provides that the state may regulate the use of any land or any asset or right over any land in the interest of defense, public safety, public order, public morality, public health, or land use planning. If you're just joining us, Speaker of the National Assembly, the Honorable Justin Mutu.
We seem as a country to place such a high premium on technology. Those of you that have not presented their biometric data, so that sooner than later you will have to either stay in the village and not come here, because even if you came, nobody will know that you came. We will stop any manual registration or recording of members coming into the chamber. So there will be further communication which will specify which members have presented their biodata for purposes of being input into the system. Now, you honorable member, even if you are this one, what is the name now? I don't know some of them. You can't come with something that purports to be a flash. Yes. Some people are calling you a bishop of sorts. Oh, I see. From honorable members, institutions and individuals regarding the fate of the Institute of Directors of Kenya Bill, National Assembly Bill number 30 of 2016, and the Refugees Bill, National Assembly Bill number 29 of 2016. For the information of the House, the two bills, which were sponsored by the Honorable David Ochieng and the Honorable Agostino Neto, respectively, were considered and passed in the last Parliament before end of its term. Thereafter, during the June recess of the last Parliament, I presented the two bills to His Excellency the President for assent in accordance with the provisions of the Constitution and our standing orders. As a matter of fact, I presented the Institute of Directors of Kenya Bill 2016 and the Refugees Bill 2016 for assent on the 21st of June 2017 and on 21st of July 2017, respectively. Honourable members, I wish to inform the House and the general public that His Excellency the President thereafter referred the two bills back to the National Assembly for reconsideration pursuant to the provisions of Article 115, Clause 1, Paragraph B of the Constitution on the 4th of July 2017 and the 5th of August 2017, respectively. In this regard, since the 11th Parliament had proceeded on sine die recess from the 15th of June 2017 until the end of its term, the National Assembly did not have the opportunity to reconsider the two bills. Honourable members, this therefore implies and means that the two bills have since lapsed in accordance with the provisions of Standing Order number 141, subsection 4, which provides that, and I quote, a bill, the consideration of which has not been concluded at the end of a term of a Parliament, shall lapse, close the quotes. Since the said bills were sponsored by individual members and who have since lost their seats, any other member is now at liberty to reintroduce any of them in accordance with the provisions of Standing Order number 114. I thank you, no members. Next.
Order number 4, petitions.
Order members, let me say that the clerk's office has received so far a number of petitions from many Kenyans. But in terms of our standing orders, more particularly standing order number 227, we cannot read those petitions out here because they would invariably stand committed to the relevant committees of the House. Now, since those committees have not been formed, it therefore would be futile if you know that understanding under 227, the committee would have 60 days within which to consider those petitions and make a report one way or other. It means, therefore, it would be unfair to read out those petitions because there is a chance that the committees may not be in place to consider those petitions. And once a referral order is made, time begins to run from that date. Just for information of members and the general public, that indeed we have received a number of petitions, but we cannot read them out here because to which committees will they be committed? So for the time being, since it looks like it is the general agreement to remain in limbo, even the general public will remain in limbo likewise until committees are formed. Next order.
Order number 5, papers.
Leader of the Majority Party.
Honorable Speaker, I beg to lay the following papers on the table of the House today, Tuesday, November 7th, 2017. One, list of nominees to 178 National Government Constituency Development Fund constituencies from the National Government Constituency Development Fund Board. 2, the Capital Markets Online Foreign Exchange Trading Regulations 2017, memoranda pursuant to Section 304, subsection 1 of the KDF Act 2012. 5, the Kenya Defence Forces Pension and Gratitude Officers and Service Members Regulation 2017, and the memorandum pursuant to Section 304, subsection 1 of the KDF Act 2012. 6, the Kenya Defence Forces Rules of Procedure 2017 and explanatory memoranda pursuant to the provisions of Section 304, subsection 1 of the KDF Act 2012. Number 7, the Competition Tribunal Procedure Rules 2017 pursuant to Section 71, subsection 6 of the Competition Act 2010. Number 8, the Companies General Amendment Number 2, Regulations 2017, and the memorandum pursuant to Section 1022 of the Companies Act 2015. Number 9, the National Land Commission Investigation of Historical Land Justices, Regulations 2017, pursuant to Section 36 of the National Land Commission Act 2012. 10, the report of the Board of the National Government Constituency Development Fund on project proposal approval, disbursement status, and restrictions imposed on constituencies accounts for the first quarter of the financial year 2017-2018, 1st of July to 30th September. Mr. Speaker, this is a very, very important report, and I hope members will get a copy of this, because this is the report from the CDF board, and it's dealing with the project proposals, those which have been approved. It talks about disbursement status. It talks about restrictions imposed on certain constituencies' accounts. So for the first quarter of this financial year. So it's good if members go through that report to see whether your constituency falls within those categories. Number 11 is a 2017 budgetary review and outlook paper from the National Treasury. 12 is a consolidated national government investment paper for the financial year 2016-17 from the National Treasury. 13 is a biannual report of the Commission on Administrative Justice, Office of the Ombudsman, for the period July to December 2016. 14 is the annual national government. Honorable Speaker, Honorable Kaluma is discussing in high tones. I don't know whether this is part of the migration. Maybe he has migrated, he thought it was from Safaricom to Airtel, but he migrated from NASA to Jubilee. The Speaker, but he's consulting our whip, and ultimately he'll consult me on the way forward on migration. Honorable Speaker, number 14, the annual National Government Budget Implementation Review Report by the Office of the Controller of Budget, and 15, the annual report and financial statements in respect of the following institutions for the financial year 2015-16. Salaries and Remuneration Commission. 2, the State of the Judiciary and the Administration of Justice. And lastly is the Higher Education Loans Board. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
And therefore, again, those regulations will remain in limbo, because we do not have the relevant committee, which is the Committee on Delegated Legislation, to consider those regulations. But of course, again, in terms of that act, the Statutory Instruments Act, anything done with the authority of the regulations, unless and until annulled or otherwise acted upon by the House, remains valid. And therefore, the regulation-making bodies that have come up with the regulations are at liberty to continue to begin implementing them until such time as the House will express itself one way or other regarding those regulations. Next order.
Order number 6, notices of motion.
Leader of the majority.
Honorable Speaker, I beg to give notice of the following motion that pursuant to the provisions of Standing Order 28.4, this House resolves to alter the calendar of the first session of the Assembly as adopted on September 27th, 2017 by proceeding for a further recess from Wednesday, November 8, 2017, and resuming its regular sittings on Wednesday, November 29th. Honorable Speaker, I also beg to give notice of the following motion that pursuant to the provisions of Section 19(1)(c) of the Parliamentary Pension Act, Cap 196, this House approves the appointment of the following members to the Parliamentary Pension Management Committee, in addition to those specified under Section 19, subsection 1. The Honorable Dan Wanyama, MP, the Honorable Rehema Dida Jaldeza, MP, and the Honorable Andrew Madime, MP. Honorable Speaker, I beg to give notice of the following motion that pursuant to the provisions of Section 43, subsection 4, and Regulation 5, subsection 1J of the National Government Constituency Development Fund 2015, this House approves the list of the nominees for the appointment to the following 178 constituency committees of the National Government Constituency Development Fund, laid on the table of the House on Tuesday, November 7, 2017. Anaikoi constituency, Ainamoi constituency, Aldai constituency, Alego Songa constituency, Awendo constituency, Bahati constituency, Baringo Central constituency, Baringo South constituency, Belgut constituency, Bamachoge Borabu constituency, Bamachoge constituency, Bonchari constituency, Borabu constituency, Bomola constituency, Kajiado South constituency, Kajiado West constituency, Kandara constituency, Kangema constituency, Kangundo constituency, Kapenguria constituency, Kapsaret constituency, Kasipul constituency, Kathiani constituency, Keyo North constituency, Keyo South constituency, Keses constituency, Kwesiro constituency, Kiambu constituency, Kibra constituency, Kibwezi East constituency, Kibwezi West constituency, Kigumo constituency, Kiharu constituency, Kilgoris constituency, Kilifi North constituency, Kilifi South constituency, Kilome constituency, Kiminini constituency, Kinango constituency, Kinango constituency, Kipiriri constituency, Kipkelion East and Kipkelion West constituencies, Kirinyaga Central constituency, Kisauni constituency, Kisumu East constituency, Kisumu West, Kitui Central, Kitui East, Kitui Rural, Kitui South, Kitui West, Kitutu Masaba, Konoin, Kurosoi North, Kuria East, Kuria West, Kwanza, Lafey, Laikipia East, Laikipia North, Laikipia West, Langata, Lari, Likoni, Likuyani, Luanda, Lugari, Lungalunga, Lorambi, Magarini, Makueni, Malava, Malindi, Mandera East, Mandera North, Mandera South, Manyata, Maragua, Marakwet East and West, Masinga, Madhioya, Matuga, Matungulu, Mavoko, Mbere North, Mbere South, Mboni, Mogotio, Moiben, Molo, Mosop, Mount Elgon, Mkureini, Mwatate, Mwingi Central and Mwingi West, Nambale, Nandi, Narok, Navaholo, Naragua, Njoro. Nyali, Nyaribari, Masaba, Nyatike, Nyeri, Oljorok, Odhaya, Pokot South, Rabai, Rongai, Rongo, Roysambu, Ruiru, Runyenjis, Sabatia, Saku, Samburu East and West, Seme, Sigor, Sigoit, Soin constituency, Sirisia, South Imenti, South Mugirango, Soi constituency, Suba North, Subukia, Taveta. Sorry, Mr. Speaker, from I think 15.
Yes, 15 to 14.
Burra constituency, Butere, Butula, Buiri, Changamwe, Cherengani, Chesumeti, Dagroti North, Dagroti South, El Nama Ravine, Eldas, Embakasi West, Emegwen, Muradikir, Fafi, Galolo, Gatundu, Gem, Gishugi, Gilgil, Gidunguri, Igembe Central, Jomvu, Juja, Kabete, Kabuchai, Kachalipa, Kaiti constituency, Kajiado, Central, Kajiado North. Mr. Speaker, there's nothing wrong. The rest I've done, and I'm sure as they come, I want to tell members there's no panic. As they come, we will read and we will approve. Even Garissa Township is not there, so so you're part of the leadership. And then, Mr. Speaker, the other thing is that we have also talked to the, now that there's no chair for CDF, we're in consultation with the Minister for National Treasury to make sure that he releases money this week to the board.
Well, very well. Just for those that may have done some things in the villages and have not done the names of their constituencies being read out, just to assure you that the office of the clerk is in constant communication with the chief executive of the national government CDF board, so that in the event we get more names of constituencies in the course between now and tomorrow when the motion is finally moved, then the leader majority has kindly agreed to move the motion in an amended form, including any other constituencies whose names will have been received. So those of you, they say in Swahili, kazi kwenu. I'm the only one who is allowed to do that, not you, Honorable Jimmy Angwenyi, notwithstanding your age. Next order. Next order. Honorable Perez Tobiko. Commence the process of registration of all members in the biometric system for purposes of recording your chamber attendances. This is in keeping with the provisions of Article 103B of the 103B of the Constitution, whose implementation requires that an accurate record of your chamber attendances be maintained. I'm surprised I can hear somebody asking why. Then you need to go back to your Constitution. Honorable members, I also did mention that it is only after the completion of that exercise, which was supposed to take a few days, that the system was to be fully operational for use. In the meantime, a window was provided to enable members who are not registered in the biometric system to use the manual register to record their chamber attendances. Indeed, most members have since complied and registered in the biometric system, in the biometric register. In this regard, I want to remind the following 27 members to ensure that they comply by having their thumb impressions entered in the biometric register by end or close of business on Friday, 10th of November, 2017. 1, the Honorable Martha Wangari, MP. 2, the Honorable Vincent Kipkurui Tuwei, MP. 3, the Honorable John Walter Owino, MP. 4, the Honorable Martin Peters Owino, MP. 5, the Honorable Pamela Ochieng Awuor, MP. 6, the Honorable Zandok Abel Ogutu, MP. 7, the Honorable Jared Odoyo Okello, MP. 8, the Honorable Mark Ogola Nyamita, MP. 9, the Honorable Thaddeus Kithua Nzamba, MP. 10, the Honorable Paul Nzengu Musiemi, MP. 11, the Honorable Jonah Mwangi Mburu, MP. 12, the Honorable Peter Mungai Mwadhi, MP. 13, the Honorable John Kanyivia Mutunga, MP. 14, the Honorable Mishi Juma Hamis, MP. 15, the Honorable David Boni Mwalika, MP. 16, the Honorable Abdik Kahim Osman Mohammed, MP. 17, the Honorable Justus Murunga Makoha, MP. 18, the Honorable Peter Francis Masara, MP. 19, the Honorable Nimrod Biduka Mbai, MP. 20, the Honorable Dominic Koskei Kipkoech, MP. 21, the Honorable Francis Kimani Kuria, MP. 22, the Honorable Django Patrick Kimani Wainaina, MP. 23, the Honorable Anab Gure Mohammed, MP. 24, the Honorable Rehema Hassan, MP. 25, the Honorable Abdi Ibrahim Mude, MP. 26, the Honorable Safia Andan Sheikh, MP. And finally, the Honorable Adan Haji Ali, MP. I wish to inform the said members that the registration exercise will be done at the entrance of the chamber during working hours when the House is not sitting from today evening. It will conclude at the close of business on Friday, 10th of November, 2017, as aforesaid, after which the use of the manual register will cease. I thank you, honorable members. There can be nothing out of order. If you have not registered, you have not registered. Maybe it means that you have... the Honorable Jimmy Angwenyi, the Honorable Vincent Kipkurui Tuwei is number 2 in the list. You will approach, Honorable Tuwei, you will approach the clerk and explain what it is. It may well be that your fingers... a bit, they have, maybe they may not have been sufficiently well captured.
Honorable Speaker, pursuant to Standing Order 43, I wish to make a statement regarding the sad demise of the Governor of Nyeri County, Dr. Ahome Gakuru. Today, Tuesday, 7th November 2017, at the Thika Level 5 hospital after a tragic road accident. The late Governor Gakuru was an accomplished scholar, being a holder of a doctorate in public administration and policy from Arizona State University, 2 master's degrees in business administration, MBA from Willamette University in the United States, and a Bachelor of Arts in Business Administration degree from the University of Nairobi. Before successfully contesting for the Nyeri gubernatorial seat in August 2017, he was a lead consultant and former university lecturer. He had also served as a director of Vision 2030, Equity Bank, National AIDS Control Council. He was loved and adored by many, especially the student fraternity of the various schools whom he taught and mentored, as well as the people of Nyeri. Honorable Speaker, he had a great connection with the business fraternity and was poised to be a great economic liberator of the people of Nyeri. Just a few days ago, Honorable Speaker, the late governor led a team of like-minded governors in launching the brainchild of regional economic integration and growth, being the resurgence of the Nairobi and Nanyuki railway line. Honorable Speaker, words are not enough to explain what a loss this is to the people of Nyeri County, and in particular my constituency, Nyeri Town constituency, where his offices and residence and where he voted. I wish therefore to take this opportunity on my behalf, that of the people of Nyeri County, to convey my deepest condolences to the people To the family and friends of the late Governor, Dr. Wahome Gakuru, may his soul rest in peace. With your indulgence, Mr. Speaker, sir, I wish to request the House to pay tribute to this distinguished leader, scholar, man of stern action, with 1 minute of silence. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Honorable made this by way of, as if it was a personal matter. I think it's only fair that we allow other members to. I've seen the member for the Leader Majority.
Mr. Speaker, on behalf of the people of Garissa Township, my family, and on behalf of colleagues, I want to send my deepest condolences to the family and friends and the great people of Nyeri County. And Mr. Speaker, barely within this year, Nyeri County lost the previous governor. And now we have lost a man who had a great vision for Nyeri County. And Mr. Speaker, I remember he went around the country. He was a very good friend of Governor Mandago. You could see him in Baringo, you could see him in Bomet, in Wasingishu, in all the other counties, drumming up support for President Uhuru Kenyatta to the run-up of the 26th October presidential repeat elections. Speaker, as a lecturer at the University of Nairobi, and you could see today with the many students he has taught, when you look at the social media, taught many students economics and marketing, including Honorable Ichungwa, the member for Parliament for Kikuyu. And Mr. Speaker, I am sure those of us who are very religious, who read the Bible and the Quran, that this is the root, that this world is just a transit point. You know, if you believe in other things, I don't know, but for those who believe in the true teaching of the Quran and the Bible. And I'm sure it's a wake-up call to the leadership of this country, that at all times, we must be conscious of the world hereafter. And that I am sure all of us together, the people of Nyeri and his family, at this very trying moment, we will stand with them. We miss a very vibrant leader, a governor, from a county that has just lost their other governor a few months ago. Mr. Speaker, I want to ask the great people of Nyeri to take heart, and that, as they said in the scriptures, that we plan, but the plan of the Almighty God supersedes our plan. Maybe God had a better place for Dr. Wahome in the hereafter. So I send my condolences to his family and the people of Nyeri, and of course to the Jubilee family.
For Kiminini.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, if he were not issue of politics, I'm sure by now, Kaguru will be a professor at the University of Nairobi. Mr. Speaker, we did some consultancy together. The time he was working for Vision 2030, and the time he was also a director at Equity Bank. Through him, Mr. Speaker, he recommended me. I also taught at Strathmore University and the University of Nairobi because of him. Mr. Speaker, I've lost a great friend. It's very unfortunate for the people of Nyeri. Just the other day, they lost Governor Nderitu Kashagwa. And today, we are seeing Dr. Wahome gone. Ours is to pray for the Nyeri people. And even last time, I can see Honorable Kanini Kega. I don't want to discuss what we discussed with you about Dr. Wahome, because it was between me and you. Ours is to pray for you, that the Almighty God gives you strength and comfort at this difficult time. I thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Member for Kieni.
Asante sana Mheshimiwa Spika kwa kunipa nafasi hii ili niomboleze na familia ya mwenda zake gavana wetu wa Nyeri. Mheshimiwa Spika, kwa niaba yangu binafsi, kwa niaba ya familia yangu na wale ambao ninawakilisha wa kule Kieni, natoa rabirabi zangu kwa familia, jamaa na marafiki ya mwenda zake gavana wetu. Alfajiri ya leo asubuhi, Mheshimiwa Spika, tulipata habari kwamba gavana wetu alihusika katika ajali ya barabara, na tukafikiria kwamba ni ajali tu ya kawaida. Lakini muda si muda tukaambiwa kwamba ametuacha. Ni pigo kubwa sisi kutoka Nyeri, tukiangazia kwamba gavana wetu wa kwanza alituacha miezi 9 iliyopita. Kwa hivyo ni wingu kubwa la simanzi ambalo liko katika kaunti yetu ya Nyeri, lakini kwa sababu sisi wote tukiwa kule ni Wakristo na ni wacha Mungu, sisi tunasema kwamba Mungu ndiye anajua wakati mtu anakuja hapa duniani na wakati ataenda. Na hasa kwa sisi viongozi ni vizuri tujue kwamba Waswahili husema tenda wema nenda zako. Wakati tuko katika dunia hii ni vizuri tuwe ama matendo yetu yawe ni matendo mema, kwa sababu muhula wetu hapa ni mfupi sana. Kwa hivyo wale ambao wanamjua wanajua kwamba alikuwa msomi, mpenda watu, tulikuwa tunafanya kazi pamoja. Wakati huu wote viongozi wote wa Nyeri, wakati alikuwa anatawazwa kama gavana wetu wa Nyeri, sisi wote kama viongozi tuliungana na tukasema kwamba Nyeri tunataka kwenda mbele. Lakini hayo tu yalikuwa ni yetu, Mungu alikuwa na mipango ingine. Kwa hayo mengi machache, kwa familia, rafiki na watu wote wa kule kwetu Nyeri, ni kutoa risala za rambirambi, kwa sababu wanasema akufaaye wakati wa dhiki ndiye rafiki. Asante sana Mheshimiwa Spika, na tunaomba kwamba Mungu ataifariji familia na ataiweka roho ya Mheshimiwa gavana pahali pema huko peponi. Asante Mheshimiwa Spika.
Member for Wainabkoi. Use that one.
Sir, I wish to take this opportunity to convey my heartfelt sorrow, message of sympathy, message of comfort, that the cruel hand of death has robbed His Excellency the Governor of Nyeri. In fact, Mr. Speaker, sir, we were very shocked because we were together in Eldoret town with Governor Mandago and all members of Parliament of Eldoret campaigning for His Excellency, the President of the Republic of Kenya. It is now my singular honor to convey the heartfelt sorrow of my constituency and the people of Uasin Gishu County. Mr. Speaker, sir, I wish to say life is all about God. It is God Himself who gives and takes life. The only thing that I want to leave with the honorable members of this august house is that it is written in the scriptures, Matthew 16, chapter 26, that what does it benefit a man, or what does it profit a man, to own the whole world and loses his own soul. Mine is only to say that all of us, we shall leave this world, but it is good to leave a legacy. Even I wish to take this opportunity to tell honorable members that we lost a great consummate peacemaker, the late Bishop Cornelius Korir, and the funeral will be on Saturday. Head of state and government, President Uhuru Kenyatta, will be there. Mr. Speaker, sir, I wish only to tell this August House that the funeral will be state burial. So with those few remarks, Your Excellency, Mr. Speaker, sir, may God Almighty rest the governor of Nyeri soul in eternal peace. Thank you.
Well, obviously, honourable members, I can see the requests so many. Of course, if it was in the 10th Parliament and backwards, the honourable member for Ainabkoi would have been out of order, because he would not have been in capacity at all to make the invitation to anybody. Being in those days, he would have been a backbencher, and therefore no authority whatsoever. But we are in a different dispensation, so he is at liberty to make the invitation. Member for Endebess, if honourable members could be brief, so that we can then allow as many of you as possible.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. I take this opportunity to send my condolences to the people of Nyeri. Honorable Speaker, the governor was part of our team on the campaign for the re-election of the president on the 26th, and he came to my county of Trans Nzoia. He also hosted us in Nyeri, together with his members of parliament, and he was a great team captain. Honorable Speaker, Governor Kaguru was a very simple guy, and you would not even imagine the level of education that he had. He would mix very comfortably with everybody, and he made us feel at home when we were in Nyeri. Honorable Speaker, we used to refer him to as a son of Mau Mau, and I really felt a great loss that we've lost a very well-educated Kenyan, a man of great potential for this country and to the people of Nyeri. So, Mr. Speaker, I want to join my great people of Endebess in sending our condolences to the people of Nyeri. May his soul rest in eternal peace.
Member for Ugunja.
Mr. Speaker, even though I'm resisting, I've just come in and I've found this motion in progress, and I felt it is important that I, on behalf of my constituents of Ugunja, also do express my deep condolences to the family of the departed governor for Nyeri, the Honorable Wahome Gakuru. Mr. Speaker, I didn't have the opportunity to know Honorable Gakuru well, but from the little I've read about him since his sad demise early this morning, I've come to the realization that indeed he was a great man. Mr. Speaker, I've also noted that Governor Wahome did serve at the University of Nairobi. Mr. Speaker, you know I'm an alumnus of the University of Nairobi, and I'm very much attached to that university community. Mr. Speaker, this coming on the heels of the death of another great scholar, Professor Duncan Okoth-Okombo of the same university, is indeed a very big loss. Not only the University of Nairobi community, but to the whole community of Kenya. So, Speaker, when death happens, as has happened today, it should bring all of us together. We know Governor Wahome has left us at a time when we are seriously polarized as a country. And indeed, this death should serve as a lesson that we human beings are mortal. Today we are here, tomorrow we are gone. So we need to understand that even as we conduct our affairs as Kenyans and as members of Parliament. So I wish to express my very deep condolences once again and pray that God continues to guide, to help the family that has been left behind. But even as I do so, I also wish, of course, to remember those of us, those other Kenyans who have lost their lives in the last couple of weeks or so, very, very unnecessarily during the skirmishes surrounding the elections in this country. And we feel very much for them and the families that they have left behind. So, Mr. Speaker, thank you very much. God bless.
Member for Kikuyu.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for this opportunity to also join my colleagues in conveying my very sincere message of condolences to the family, friends, and relatives of my late governor and friend, Dr. Wahome Gakuru. Mr. Speaker, I came to know Dr. Wahome Gakuru about 21 years ago when, as a 19-year-old student, Dr. Wahome Gakuru taught me in a unit at Strathmore University when I was doing my CPAs called Principles and Practice of Management. And over the years, I've come to know Dr. Gakuru even at the University of Nairobi where he taught, where he also taught my wife, who incidentally, Mr. Speaker, comes from the county of Nyeri. As an astute lecturer, a person, again, who was not just knowledgeable in the practice of management and teaching of management, but
have claimed lives in this country. And those that we give our roads to make, we need to be careful on how they do the roads. Looking at that bar that went into that Mercedes-Benz, really, you wonder what that contractor was doing on that road to leave such a thing, an ISO on the road. So motorists and people who inspect roads and people who have the responsibility to make sure that our roads are good and passable and usable to everybody need to take note that this death signifies that we need to be more careful when we are doing roads in this country. With all that, I want to say again, condolences to the family, and that may God rest the soul of Governor Wahome in eternal peace.
Honorable Caleb Kostani.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. On behalf of my family and the people of Soy constituency, we'd like to pass our sincere condolence to the family of the late governor of Nyeri County. As has been said before by honorable members, the late governor of Nyeri County happened to have visited Uasin Gishu County, and we hosted him for 2 nights as we went around the campaign trail in Uasin Gishu and Trans Nzoia County, campaigning for His Excellency the President's re-election. Governor Wahome, Governor Gakuru was a very humble man. We shared a meal together the first time I sat with him in Eldoret, and I came to see and to gather that he was a man of vision. As we mourn him today, I just took note of how much our social media is insensitive when a senior member of society passes on. I think it is upon us, as members of this House, to try and see whether we can have some regulation on how people convey messages of death from such a senior member in society. Because we saw so many photographs. I don't know how the family came to learn on it. I just pray that they didn't learn about it through the social media. But I think as members of this republic, we need to really safeguard and be sensitive to such issues. We also noticed, Mr. Speaker, that today when we were at the Lee funeral, we want to thank all Kenyans who came in to condole with the family. We saw the Deputy President. From his busy schedule, he took time to come to the Lee funeral and be with the family, spend some time with the family. We say once again, sorry, and may God rest his soul in eternal peace. Thank you.
Member for Buri.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. On behalf of people of Buri and my family, we wish to extend our condolences to the family of Dr. Wahome and the entire Nyeri constituency. I've been privileged to meet Dr. Wahome, and knowing very well we are neighboring as a county. On behalf of Insurance Association of Insurance Brokers of Kenya, where we have hosted him in our various conferences, and whenever we have had any conference, we used to invite him, and he would diligently come and share his experiences with us. He's one person that we looked upon when we are drafting various petitions, looking forward the way we do our business as insurance brokers. With the words of Shakespeare, he said, "This is the world we come, act, and go." Fare thee well, Doctor and Governor of our neighboring constituency, Nyeri. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker.
Honorable Lesuda.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. I also do rise to pass my personal and also the condolences of my constituents, Samburu West, to the family of the late Governor of Nyeri and the residents of Nyeri County. Would also like to wish quick recovery to those whom he was traveling with, and we do pray that they will be healed and they can get back to their normal lives. And also, he sits for his KCSE, Mr. Speaker. I also rise to really appreciate you and also all those who stood with us when we lost, during the recess, we lost one of the great and old men, Siopin Lekolol, who used to pray here in Parliament. And he used to pray since 1992. We appreciate you sending your condolences as a Samburu fraternity and the people of my constituencies. And we do know, and we know that we will remember him for his contribution to this country. So my sincere condolences once again. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Now, honourable members, I have too many requests, but let me just allow the following members to make 1 minute contribution. Member for, not what is it? What is it called? Is it Roysambu? Honorable Wayenya. 1 minute. The member for Nyeri Town, Nyeri County, we'll see the next to you. The member for Dagoretti South. 1 minute each. Then we. Now. Proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for allowing me this chance also to register my sympathies and condolences to the family of the late Governor of Nyeri. Mr. Speaker, I happen to come from Nyeri Town constituency in Nyeri County, and the former governor was my neighbor at home. I wish to pass my sympathies to the wife and to the children. And we pray that his soul rests in the bosom of Abraham. He goes to join the happy company of Professor Wangari Maathai. We pray that he passes our regards to the legendary thespian, his namesake, Wahome Mutahi, and the legendary Field Marshal Dedan Kimathi Washuri and Mama Lucy Kibaki. We wish to mourn together with the people of Nyeri and on behalf of all those residents from Nyeri who live in Nairobi, we wish to pass our condolences and we are with them in prayers. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Member for Nyeri County.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise to pass my heartfelt condolences to our governor. It's been a heart-wrenching morning for those of us who has been working with him. The news of his demise has shaken us to the core. I appeal to all of you to pray for his family so that they may find the grace and strength as they move through this dark moment. Let us also pray for Nyeri County that God may hold our hearts and guide us. Let us be still and know there is God. It is well.
South.
Mr. Speaker, sir, thank you very much. And I want to join the nation in passing my condolences on my behalf, on the behalf of my family, and on behalf of the entire Dagoretti South constituency to the people of Nyeri on the loss of the life of the Governor, Dr. Wahome Gakuru, who I happen to have known personally as he worked at the Vision 2030 and later on at the National AIDS Control Council, where we were lucky that he personally interviewed my wife and gave her an opportunity to serve at the council. Later on, as a director of strategy at Equity Bank, I worked closely with him as a consultant, and I know that it will go in history that we produced one of the finest marketing campaigns, the member campaign for Equity Bank. Dr. Gakuru, for those who may never get to know him, will not know why this nation mourns. But I want to say that we are mourning a great mind, an amazing thinker, and a very good strategic planner. I want to take this opportunity to mourn with the Nyeri fraternity, knowing that we were all eager to see how Daktari was going to unveil the vision for Nyeri. I also want, Mr. Speaker, to add my voice to those who are here castigating some of us who have the opportunity to use social media and are not using it wisely. I want to imagine what it would be for a family that has not received the news of the passing of a loved one to see graphic images and very unkind words being transmitted through these digital platforms. And I wish to add my voice to those of us who believe that there should be some sanitizing of our digital platforms in this country. Once again, as we mourn, as we are saddened by this news, I also want to take this opportunity to say that Dr. Gakuru leaves an amazing legacy. And for that, we shall be eternally grateful for the time that he had on this earth. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker, sir.
Member for Rangwe.
Thank you so much, Mr. Speaker, sir. It is a golden time to have to stand here for the first time to pass my condolences on my own behalf and on behalf of the great people of Rangwe, of a great scholar, a Kenyan. My heart is wrenching because at this particular time, as a nation, we are having an impasse, and I'm only praying and hoping that Daktari did not go with the key that we needed to unlock this country as a nation. I'm only praying that the brilliant brain that is right now refrigerated somewhere has not gone with our hope as a nation. I'm only pleading with the leadership of this country that the only thing the only proper mourning that we can give our leaders at this time is sobriety. how I pray that each and everyone who is going to say anything kind about this great mind, about this great scholar, about this bright Kenyan is going to return to sobriety, is going to return to God for the sake of Kenya moving forward. Rest in peace, Daktari. Mama and your family, God is with you. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir.
Dr. Christine Ombaka.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for giving me this opportunity. The people of Siaya, myself and family, send deep condolence to the family and the people of Nyeri for losing such a brilliant mind, a leader, a person who has served this nation. I'm not mourning him. I'm celebrating his life. And that's what we should do. When I woke up in the morning and got this message, I thought of many things. I said how useless our lives are, because you wake up in the morning without feeling sick, you are healthy, you are strong, and you're going to work, or you are going to any assignment, and you die on the way. I looked at our lives and I said, our lives is useless. So that's why we need to celebrate ourselves for the little time that we're given in this earth. I want to finish by also celebrating the lives of those we have buried in the last month. It's only last Saturday that I buried in my county a pilot of a plane. It was a plane that plunged into Nakuru, and bodies have not been found. Some of them have not been found. This is a pilot, Captain Apollo Maloa. We buried him last Saturday. I take this time also to celebrate his life, and I want to also celebrate the lives of others who have died in the hands of man. Shot on the back, shot everywhere. Bullets went through them. They died. So we die either naturally, by accident, or by the hands of man. All of them will go to heaven, and all of them, I celebrate their lives. May God rest their souls in eternal peace. Thank you.
Member for Madeira.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I take this opportunity to give my very sincere condolences to the family of the late Dr. Gakuru, who was my guide.
And as my colleagues have said, I would also beseech the people on social media to be at least be extra careful on what they post, on what they comment, because I remember this morning, even before the final word about passing over of the governor was announced, news were already circulating in the social medias about him having lost his life. And I think it's high time that we should we should be more careful than before, especially on such matters that affects our families, that affects the people of this country, and affects so many friends. So my sincere condolences to the loss of our governor. Thank you.
Member for Mukurweini.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir. I rise on behalf of people of Mukurweini to give my condolences to the family of Dr. Wahome Gakuru, a good friend of mine. And I want to state here that Mukurweini gave him the second highest number of votes in Nyeri County. He was my good friend, a mentor, a humble man, a son of Mau Mau, and a great reader. I have no words to describe him. Here is a man who was humble enough to know that leadership and greatness comes from being humble. He went around the country campaigning for our president. He was one person upon whom Nyeri leadership revolved. He's the person who brought together all the leaders of Nyeri. And on behalf of my family, I want to condole his family. And more so, his boy who's in Form 4. I know it will be a very difficult time for him, but I know God will give him courage to face all that. As I finish, I also want to wish quick recovery to all those who are involved in the accident alongside him, and in particular his personal assistant, AGM Gakuru, who is also my constituent. I want to also castigate the social media because we have removed all the privacies from the families. This morning, as my colleagues have said, Dr. Wahome Gakuru, when he was being attended to in hospital, had already been declared dead by the social media. As I stand here, his personal assistant, who is also my constituent, had been declared dead not more than 4 times. Fortunately or unfortunately for those who are perpetuating that, Mr. Gakuru, the personal assistant, is alive and kicking. Rest in peace, my brother. Rest in peace, my governor. Thank you.
Honorable Chelule, member for Nakuru County.
Thank you. Asante sana Bwana Spika kunipatia nafasi pia nitumane risala zangu za rambirambi kwa familia ya Mheshimiwa Governor wa Nyeri. Tunapo tafakari kuna sababu kubwa sana ambayo ilifanya wananchi wa Nyeri kumchagua kama kiongozi, na ni maombi yetu kama Nakuru County kuwaombea sana kwamba wakati huu wa machozi Mungu aweze kusimamia county ya Nyeri na kusimamia familia, hasa kijana yake ambaye anaanza kuketi kwa mitihani yake. Mungu aweze kusimama naye, ampatie nguvu ili hata aweze kustahimili shida ambayo imepata familia. Natoa pia risala za rambirambi Bwana Spika kwa watu ambaye wametoka hasa kijiji yangu na ya Nakuru County ambaye walipoteza maisha yao kwa ajali ambayo ilitokea katika barabara ya Salga, ambayo imejulikana sana kwamba ni barabara mbaya ambaye tumepoteza watu wengi sana. Ninatoa tena risala zangu za rambirambi kutoka Nakuru kwa wale wote ambaye walipoteza maisha yao kwa ajali ya ndege ambaye ilipata ajali na ikaingia ndani ya lake ya Nakuru, ambaye 2 walipatikana, 3 hawajapatikana mpaka sasa. Bwana Spika, ni maombi yetu kwamba Mungu aweze kusimamia familia pia, kuwapatia nguvu, na ninawaza kwamba bunge hili pia iweze kuangalia vile tunaweza kutatua ama kuchunguza mambo ya ajali ambayo inatokea kila mara. Nafikiri tukifanya uchunguzi juu ya ajali yote ambayo imetoka, itakuwa ni njia moja ya kupunguza maajali katika nchi yetu. Kwa hivyo kama bunge, nafikiria bado tutarudi hapa tuongee tena, tuone vile mambo ya ajali inaweza kutatuliwa katika nchi yetu. Otherwise, poleni sana wale wote ambaye waliweza kupatwa na ajali na mafamili yao. Asante sana.
Within the counties, and he was going to use Nyeri as a prototype of a county that embodies governance in everything that it does. So I'm hoping that even those who take over after him will continue with that dream. Now, I've known Dr. Gakuru for quite a while. From a social perspective, we are members of the same club at Muthaiga Golf Club, and we socialize together a lot. At the academic level, he was one of my unofficial supervisors during my doctoral studies, and he kept on every time we met. The discussion will not be, how is your golf? It's like, where are you on your thesis? So he's very committed to academic work. he was the biggest defender of the Kenyan public service and convincing them why their brains would be better used in Kenya than in the US. And using him as an example, see what I'm doing for my country. I would like many more of you. So we could say so many things about him, but we'll miss him. And it's unfortunate that a cruel hand of death has taken one of our best. And we can only hope that those who take over from him will live to his expectations. And for the family, let them take heart. They had a great dad, and we trust God will give them peace and comfort during these difficult times. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Member for Kandara.
Mr. Speaker, I don't have my card with me.
Just a while ago, I did give direction about what we shall be doing with members who come without their cards. They will be going to the streets or join some.
Thank you.
What are you?
It means it looks something is happening. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I want to take this opportunity to join my colleagues in passing my deep, sincere condolences to the entire family of His Excellency Governor Wahome Gakuru, Mr. Speaker, the people of Nyeri, and the entire Kenyan fraternity, and also the Council of Governors, with all the governors, because I believe they had an expectation from each of them. Mr. Speaker, I give these condolences on my own behalf, my family, who is closely known to the Governor, also the people of Kandara, and particularly, Mr. Speaker, I want to thank the people of Kandara constituency. This accident occurred at a place called Mackenzie, or in my language, Makeji. This area, Mr. Speaker, has had other serious accidents, and it is very early in the morning, I saw people calling me, and I'm happy that this particular time, there were people of goodwill that ordinary Kenyan came to his aid and assisted in rescuing, in taking him to hospital, Mr. Speaker. Just ordinary Kenyans, and I think taking into account what has been said about social media, I think there are also those who were able to assist in this particular time of need. Mr. Speaker, but this particular area, Mr. Speaker, is on the dual carriage, the superhighway, Thika superhighway, and serious accidents have occurred on this road. This particular area had a problem in terms of construction, and I believe that was said to have been fixed. But it is important because I know investigations will be taking place. It's good to analyze properly whether that specific area, because it had problems in terms of how the road had been finished, and it was extremely smooth so that vehicles were skidding, to find out whether that could have been part of the problem. But what I'm saying, Mr. Speaker, this road has a big budget in terms of maintenance. It is important that we know whether anything could have been part of the accident that could have been avoided. Having said that, Mr. Speaker, for the people of Nyeri, I think it is really a time to reflect on these losses. I think we want to condole with you, to support you as you mourn, but also say that as Kenyans, we have had serious issues in the country, and looking at the condolences coming to this floor, Mr. Speaker, the chambers, it is obvious that members are condoling as one family, and we need to move that way as a family, Mr. Speaker, even as a family of Parliament. It is important to take that note. Mr. Speaker, Nyeri has really been an unfortunate in terms of the loss of their governors. And one would want to look at Kenya, and the devolution has lost a very good brain. And Mr. Gakuru, Governor Gakuru, would have been one of those governors, possibly would have looked at Nyeri and seen that implementation of devolution has a good place in our Kenyan history. So having those words, Mr. Speaker, I want to just say my sincere condolences for this young family and even the young man who is sitting for his exams. It must be very difficult, and we want to just remember them even in prayers as a whole, as a family. Mr. Derito Gachagua just left after a very long illness, so it cannot be easy for the entire even parliamentarians from that county. They had a lot of hopes because they really had looked forward in working now together again as a team. Those maybe could be enough for now, Mr. Speaker. My sincere condolences to all of you.
Now I can see another. Do I see the Honorable Kamoti? Honorable members, I know the requests are overwhelming. It's just not possible for everyone.
Asante Mheshimiwa Spika. Nami kwa niaba yangu na kwa niaba ya wakazi wa eneo bunge la Rabai na toa rambirambi kwa familia na marafiki ya mstahiki Gavana Gakuru. Tunatoa rambirambi pia kwa wakazi wa Nyeri Mbuka. Pia nataka niungane na wenzangu kuambia wale wahusika wa mabarabara, kwa sababu tumeambiwa hapa Makenzi, kule Salga na hata kule Rabai tunapo Bonje, ambapo ajali zinatokea kila wakati. Ombi langu kwa shirika husika la Kenha ni kwamba wahakikishe kwamba hatungoji maisha yamalizike kila wakati mahali pale pale. Kama ni kwa sababu barabara ile haiko sawa, basi shirika hili la Kenha liweze kufanya kazi yake ili tusiwe
on site. Very tragedy, but we are praying to the family and we are telling the wife, the Lord is there for the gap. He's going to see the family through, and particularly to the son who is sitting for the exams. And Mr. Speaker, it's very unfortunate because not Tharaka-Nithi. Nyeri County lost their governor recently, the first governor. We are telling them we are praying with you. Don't ask a question why it is happening to Nyeri. Everything that happens, it has a purpose. And God is going to see you through. We are praying together. The governor, Wahome, is a great man. He taught my sister in the university. I've known he's a friend to the Tharaka-Nithi people. He came the other day while campaigning. They are very close with my governor. We are telling you people, we need to pray, we need to console the family and the entire people of Nyeri. We are praying with you, and may God bless you so much. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
For honour members, I'll request you that we all be abstaining to observe a moment of silence in honor of the departed soul of the late Governor Dr. Wahome Gakuru. Indeed, alongside the loss of Professor Okoth Kombo and Mzee Siopin Lekolol, both of who rendered great service, just like the Governor Gakuru, to this republic. May their souls rest in eternal peace. Next order. Yes, what was the point? Oh, the Honorable Dr. Makali Mulu. Yes.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, my point of order relates to Standing Order number 212B. And if you allow me, Mr. Speaker, I will read. It says there shall be a select committee to be designated the Committee on Members' Services and Facilities. And the committee shall be responsible for receiving and considering views of members
on the services and the facilities provided for their benefit and welfare, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, we all know that, Mr. Speaker, you know very well that those of us who are in the 11th Parliament, personally, I was a member of the Budget and Appropriations Committee, Mr. Speaker, and we did factor into the budget money to be paid to members of Parliament who will lose their seats as a result of the general election. Mr. Speaker, we are aware that 70% of the members of the 11th Parliament lost their seats. And that's why we have 70% of new members in this House. Unfortunately, Mr. Speaker, because of lack of formation of parliamentary committees, Mr. Speaker, our colleagues who lost their seats have not been able to access their benefits. And to me, Mr. Speaker, because they're still our colleagues and we interact with them, I think now it's almost 3 months since they lost their seats. And Mr. Speaker, there are other welfare issues which we'd want to articulate, Mr. Speaker, but not in a plenary like this. Mr. Speaker, I would plead for your direction or your judges in terms of how do we address these urgent matters to do with the members' welfare. Is it that we could request you to convene a Kamkunji so that we are able to say some of the details? Or, Mr. Speaker, what other possible measures would I advise? So that as members of this House, Mr. Speaker, then we don't serve and our colleagues don't serve, more so those who are out there and they want to start a new chapter in their life because they have lost the election. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I would really wish to get your direction.
Well, I don't think whether the issues that you've raised, Honorable Makali Mulu, can even be resolved in Kamukunji. But suffice to say that just this afternoon, the leader of the majority party did give notice of a motion proposing the appointment of 3 members into a committee known as Pensions Management Committee, which is chaired by the Speaker, and which has membership from other arms of government, more particularly from the Treasury and the Attorney General's offices. So I would suggest that maybe we await the decision of this House tomorrow regarding the appointment of that committee. We should be able to deal particularly with one of the aspects that you've raised, but I think, Honorable Makali Mulu, because I do know that you have a passion for some of the many issues that would revolve around this. I think that committee, if indeed it is, the House approves its establishment tomorrow, then perhaps we could, the committee can invite you to come and canvass some of the very, very critical issues that are intertwined in the matters that you've raised. But in the meantime, of course, members are still at liberty to, well, meet even in caucuses. I don't want to get to draw you to take you outside of the chamber, but it's only fair that members should meet and discuss matters to do with their welfare, and until such time as members have agreed to form committees. We are not why should we even call a Kamukunji? Because the standing order that you've read out was created deliberately, if you recall, towards the tail end of the last Parliament for exactly those reasons. But if the House has found it necessary to stay without committees so that they can operate in the streets, well, it's still the decision of the House. The House has the capacity to either decide to remain acting in a plenary only or to be doing it at the coffee places and other social joints. Because it is within the power of this House. Just yesterday, I did receive a letter from one of the coalitions, in fact, the NASA coalition. I don't know whether they still, the name has not been changed. I hope it doesn't change too soon, requesting that you be given until the end of this month to sort out some of the internal problems that may be having problems in the formation of committees. So now, you see, we really don't know where to begin from. On one hand, the leadership of the coalition you serve in, Honorable Makali Mulu, has asked until the end of this month. And you are very, very, very pertinent issues that you are raising, which would, naturally would have been attended to by the committee, particularly that committee, if it had been formed by now. The Deputy Leader of the Majority Whip is the one to move this motion. Honorable Barire.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise to move that this House adopt sessional paper number 5 of 2016 on the National Climate Change Framework Policy, laid on the table of the House on Wednesday, October 11, 2017. Mr. Speaker, Kenya is a developing country whose economy is highly dependent on natural resource base, thus making it highly vulnerable to climate change. Members can attest to the rising temperatures and changing rainfall patterns being experienced currently throughout the country. This, in effect, has resulted to droughts and flooding, which threaten the sustainability of the country's development. In order to safeguard development, the government has developed this National Climate Change Framework Policy to provide a clear and concise response to climate change and variability. Mr. Speaker, members will agree with me that this is long overdue. Mr. Speaker, the Constitution of Kenya 2010 sets out a commitment to ecologically sustainable development. Sessional paper number 10 of 2012 on Kenya Vision 2030 establishes the goal of Kenya becoming a middle-income country, providing high-quality life for all its citizens by the year 2020. Climate change poses a significant challenge to these sustainable development goals. Further, the country has shown the commitment on dealing with climate change issues by supporting implementation of the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change process and the ratification of the Kyoto Protocol of 2005, efforts that contribute to continental and regional climate change initiatives. Climate change has adverse impacts on key sectors that are important to the economy and society. They include the environment, water and forestry, agriculture, livestock and fisheries, trade, extractive industries, energy, physical infrastructure, tourism and health. Actually, climate change does affect everything that we depend on as human beings. Mr. Speaker, it is therefore in order to safeguard sustainable development, the National Climate Change Framework Policy is essential to provide a clear and concise articulation of overall response priorities to climate variability and change. The National Climate Change Framework Policy aims at enhancing an adaptive capacity that will build resilience to climate variability and change while promoting low carbon development pathway. Mr. Speaker, the policy focuses on the interlinkages between sustainable national development and climate change through intervention measures that can help to achieve the goal of low carbon resilient development. Mr. Speaker, the policy is designed to provide a framework to guide the development and implementation of specific, detailed, and costed climate change interventions through regular and periodic climate change action plans. The objectives of the policy are the following, Mr. Speaker. 1, to establish and maintain an effective and efficient institutional framework to mainstream climate change responses across relevant sectors, Kenya transition to cleaner, lower emission, and less carbon-intensive development. 4, incentivize private sector involvement in building climate change resilience and engaging in low carbon development opportunities. 5, facilitate widespread public awareness, participation, ownership, and oversight of Kenya's climate change response efforts and action plans. Intergenerational, special needs, and gender mainstreaming approaches across all aspects of Kenya's climate change response. 8, provide the policy framework to facilitate effective implementation of regularly updated and scientifically informed climate change action plans. 9, enhance research and use of science and technology in policy decisions and sustainable management of resources. Mr. Speaker, Kenya's continued vulnerability to climate change and the threat it poses to achieving long-term development goals has that been clearly recognized. Therefore, this is a policy designed, legislative and institutional framework that will provide a regulatory architecture comprising the vital components of climate change governance. I beg to move. Mr. Speaker, I beg to move to call upon Honorable Osita to second this motion. Thank you. Ositai to second this. I beg your pardon.
Yes, the Honorable Ositani.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I can see I have been given a new name. I will try and adapt to it. Mr. Speaker, I rise to second this motion. As a matter of importance to our country, we actually need to adopt climate change for our country. I come from an agricultural background, or a county that depends very heavily on agriculture, and for that matter, rain-fed agriculture. As has been mentioned here, climate change affects also the rain pattern. We can see, like right now, it is harvesting time in Uasin Gishu County and Nandi County and Trans Nzoia County. But we are having, for every 10 bags of maize we are harvesting, we have 3 bags that we will throw away or we will meal for the cows because they have become rotten due to excessive rain. So, Mr. Speaker, I rise to second the motion. Thank you.
All right. Members, I therefore propose the question that this House adopt sessional paper number 5 of 2016 on the National Climate Change Framework Policy laid on the table of the House on Wednesday, October the 11th, 2017. Honorable members, before I give opportunity to members to speak to this, I would just like to remind you that contributions from members will be for 5 minutes. Members will have 5 minutes, and this is in accordance to our standing orders, our own rules. I will start with the first member who is on record showing interest, and that is the Honorable Kipyegon Ngeno, member for Emurua Dikir. He's out. He does not desire to be present. Then we shall have the Honorable Wachira Kabinga, member from where?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for giving me this opportunity to contribute to this very important motion on climate change. Some of us come from agricultural areas. I come from Mwea, where we produce rice, and our production, Mr. Speaker, highly depends on rain patterns and issues on climate change, and especially ensuring that our people have the capacity to adapt to climate change, Mr. Speaker, is very important. And so, when we talk about this motion, Mr. Speaker, I'm looking at the policy framework, not only looking at policy issues at the ministerial levels, but also taking it down or trickling it down to the communities down there who lack the capacity to adapt to various climate changes, Mr. Speaker, and therefore, when they are affected, they do not know how to look for alternative means of survival. in the rusty season, Mr. Speaker, in my constituency, due to lack of rains and the drought that was there, we did not have harvest of rice. And because of lack of inadequate capacity for climate change, my people in Mwea ended up suffering. It is a high time, Mr. Speaker, that we have policy frameworks that will enable our people down there to be prepared for some of these changes, to be prepared for eventualities, to be prepared for seasons that they may not probably have witnessed in the past. In the history of Mwea, Mr. Speaker, we have never seen the bottom of a canal. We do not know how it looks like. But in the rusty season, because of the drought that was there, all the canals were dry. And because they were all dry, our communities ended up in suffering hunger, and they were not prepared for it, and therefore they ended up in suffering, and some going to an extent of having their children out of school because of lack of alternative means of survival when we have these effects of climate. Mr. Speaker, therefore, I rise to support this motion that Kenya requires a very effective policy framework on climate change that should trickle out there, that technical people out there should be able to enlighten our people on areas that are not expected. And if this happened probably in my constituency, we would have grown something else and not wait until a whole season of rice was not there and our people ended up in suffering. Mr. Speaker, I rise to support this motion.
Very well. We shall now have the member for Buri, the Honorable Indikiri Mwirithania. He's chosen to absent himself. Very well. We shall move on. We shall now have the Honorable Osoti Godfrey.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for that opportunity to contribute to this motion. I rise to support this motion. Mr. Speaker, the issue of climate change is very, very critical to our lives as human beings. It is also very, very critical to our development, not just as Kenya, but globally. The reason why I say so is because climate change is a key component on environmental management. And it is important for Kenya as a country that relies heavily on agriculture to invest substantially in climate change and issues of environmental management. Leak, who has said that this policy is long overdue. It should have been introduced in this parliament many, many years back. We see the effects of climate change all over. In some areas in this country, we have regions that used to have harvest twice a year, and now they can only do one harvest a year. This is an effect of climate change. We have also suffered as a country because of El Nino rains. The country has lost a lot of money because of the effects that come with El Nino rains. So we need, as a country, to think widely and to invest substantially on matters to do with climate change. When we talk about climate change, we talk about things like drainage systems. When you are designing the drainage systems, for example, for Nairobi and other major towns, we must take into account climate change. So you can clearly see climate change is very central to our lives. In fact, my advice to the government is we need to enhance our budgetary allocation to the Ministry of Environment, because environment affects everything. Environment affects planning, environment affects our roads, environment affects agriculture, and environment affects virtually everything you can talk about in this world. So, Mr. Speaker, I rise to support this motion. Thank you.
Very well. We shall now have the Honorable Lentoimaga Musa, member for Samburu North.
Mr. Speaker, go to the next. I didn't press for this particular motion.
You speak to the previous one, probably. Very well, very well, very well, the Honorable Member. We shall have the Honorable Wanjira Wangari, member for Gilgil.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for this opportunity. And as I contribute to the motion, allow me to give my condolences to the people of Nyeri on my own behalf, of the family, and the people of Gilgil on the loss of Governor Dr. Wahome Gakuru. I know him for quite some time. May his soul rest in peace, and may we pray for quick recovery for the aide, the driver, and the bodyguard of the governor. Mr. Speaker, I happened to be privileged to serve in the 11th Parliament in the Senate. I sat in the Committee of Environment and Natural Resources, and I was very fortunate to be able to participate in COP 20 and COP 21 that took place in Paris and Marrakech last year. And I can say, Mr. Speaker, that the issues of climate change need more than just deliberations and high-profile meetings, because we send quite a large delegation to these meetings every year, even this year, Mr. Speaker, but we need to break down the commitment of every country to make sure that the environment is a better place. And I can say, Mr. Speaker, that the Paris Agreement, that was a commitment to the reduction of the greenhouse emissions, must really be taken up by every country. And more importantly, Mr. Speaker, is that also the highest contributors and the highest polluters in the world must also take the highest responsibility. And I'm now speaking to the politics in the global arena, Mr. Speaker, that the commitment must come from every country. And the first world countries must even bear more responsibility as the bigger contributors to these emissions. Mr. Speaker, the other important thing in the commitment that we must see by adoption of this sessional paper is that the issue of public participation, because we speak jargons in these meetings. So many don't understand, apart from the technical teams, don't understand what it means. The Ministry of Environment must ensure that it is broken down to palatable pieces to the Kenyan people to know the dangers of what we do, the public participation inclusivity, Article 10 of the Constitution, so that enough education is given, and not just as part of the curricula, but a part of the public participation, to be able to explain what are greenhouse gases, what does it mean, what are the dangers. We must have a clear, elaborate plan to be able to break it down to ensure that this is done. Mr. Speaker, we have some 3 bodies that we are still looking for in Lake Nakuru. And that is the late Mapozi John, that is the late Veronica Mudhoni, and that is the late Sam Getau, who perished in a nasty accident that involved a plane crash into Lake Nakuru. And one thing we have had teams trying to actually recover these bodies, and it has been hell of a time for the families as they sit on the shores of Lake Nakuru waiting for anything, even a body to bury. It is a desperate situation, and one thing I can tell you is that even the Navy have complained is the level of pollution in Lake Nakuru in terms of even being able to look into the water and find this debris or even the bodies. Mr. Speaker, I can tell you these families have had a few days, because it is bad enough to lose your son, who is a young promising man, a young promising woman, and even worse, you don't find the body. Mr. Speaker, one of the biggest contributors is the level of pollution in that lake. And I think we need enough education, the breaking down, not just attending COP COP22 this year, COP23 next year, but we do not understand what do we say in the commitment of the government and how do the wananchi and everyone plug in to be able to play their part. So, Mr. Speaker, with those few remarks, I support the adoption of this sessional paper. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Very well. We shall now have the Honorable Baya, member for Kilifi North.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Sir, I would like to rise to support this motion on the following facts. One, climate change is something that has affected the world in many things. But when policies are drawn, they need to address specific things. One of the things that you notice when you followed the presidential elections in the United States, you realize that climate change became one of the greatest talking points. And the current president of the United States actually disputed issues surrounding climate change. We as Africans and as Kenyans have always borrowed very heavily from what has come from the West and the Americans. But Americans themselves are doubting certain things about climate change. That today in Kenya, Turkana has discovered a lot of oil, mining and exploration of oils. So today, if we sit here as Parliament and budget a policy framework on climate change, which has not taken care of the fact that it is now in Kenya that we are discovering hydrocarbons. Lamu, which is in the coast, is going to discover, or is in the process of discovering hydrocarbons and mining in the ocean. Today, a framework like this might impede the exploration of those oils because it says we are moving to green energy. How has the ministry, therefore, looked at this policy vis-a-vis the new discoveries that we are making that are going to make the people of Lamu, who have been many years poor, and now they're in the process of discovering oil, which, if you mine oil from, and gas, actually oil and gas in Lamu, from the ocean, you will be told you're polluting and it is not allowed, and therefore shut up and go away. There are certain policy framework. I've gone through the policy framework, and I think it is short in addressing certain things. One of them is housing, and how it's going to mitigate climate change against housing. Today, if you go to Mariakani, a neighboring constituency, Kilifi, you realize that houses have been corroded because of the emissions that are coming from the factories that are in that area. Families are having more kids sick because of the emissions that are coming from there. How has this policy addressed issues of housing and emissions that are coming out of big factories? If you go to Athi, to Kaloleni, where there's a mining for limestone and for cement, families there have suffered greatly because of things that come from the earth. It's important, yes, we want mining to continue, we want cement to be produced in this country, but it has affected families. Do we stop the production? What are the mitigating features that the ministry or this framework is proposing to ensure that it does not affect such? This policy has addressed the issue of tourism. Yes, climate change has come, temperatures have gone up, oceans are melting, glaciers are melting, and all that. And therefore, we are saying that in the parks, it's not easy to find animals the way you used to find them. And therefore, tourists spend more money looking for animals in their park. Does this mean, therefore, as we adopt this policy, there'll be rises in taxes? Because climate change policy, if you read it, proposes certain taxes to curb certain things. So is the ministry or this framework robust enough to really cover the common mwananchi so that he's not affected by some of the taxes that are proposed? Because a framework like this proposes certain taxes. If you look at some of the recommendations that it makes, it proposes certain taxes. So today, as Parliament has adopted it, we need to be very careful whether it is going to increase the cost of life. The American president said that, if you allow me 1 minute, that because of our stringent...
The member will have an extra minute. The Honorable Bayo have an extra minute.
Thank you. If you look at what the American said, he said, because of the stringent frameworks on climate change, we have shipped all our jobs to China, because China has very loose policies on this. Us as a third world country, we are trying to put very stringent measures on climate change, and we're going to ship some of our jobs also to China because we cannot manufacture here because of emissions. Thank you very much. I beg to support this policy.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir. I rise to support the adoption of the paper. But first and foremost, let me convey my deepest condolences to the family of the late Governor for Nyeri and Dr. Wahome Gakuru and the people of Nyeri on my own behalf and on behalf of the people of Tharaka. It has been a very tight week, having lost the Bishop, Coril. We've also lost Professor Okoth Okombo. For those who remember, that is the elderly gentleman who came to our training induction at the Intercontinental and is passed on. May he rest in peace. And in Meru, we've also lost an icon of liberation of Kenya. We've lost a former cabinet minister, Mr. Kabere Bijewe, and we are also conveying condolences to the people of Meru. When we talk about climate, sometimes the discussions become emotive, simply because our lives are revolve and are governed by climate, and unless we do have a proper framework, the way we manage our climatic conditions, then we would always have problems in the country. Remember the late Professor Wangari Maathai saying that if we do not conserve our environment, if we do not conserve our rivers, one day we may end up drinking soil, sand, instead of water. The constituency had dried up and everybody was in a panic. That situation does not prevail today, again because of climatic change. We have heavy rains pounding the areas around Mount Kenya, Meru, Tharaka Nithi, Embu, and those rivers are now overflowing. In fact, I'm told that this morning, most of parts of the lower Tharaka were flooded because of these rivers that are overflowing. The net effect is that we need a national policy on climate change. A policy that would actually drive this country from where we are today towards a better tomorrow, towards a vision that we all envisage of Kenyans having better lives. Therefore, having gone through this framework, this paper that actually starts with what we think the position is, we go down to what the policy issues are, and eventually we conclude with implementation of those policy issues. It is my humble submission that the country needs to have a policy paper such as this so that we can move forward to having a better climate, not just for Kenya, but for the entire Africa and the world, so that our people can live better lives. Therefore, I do support that we adopt this paper. I do support that this rainy season, it is my proposition, and I have proposed to my people of Tharaka that we must endeavor to plant trees. Let us plant as many trees as we can, because by so doing, we are mitigating as regards negative climatic changes. I support the paper.
the Honorable Hulufo Order, member for Isiolo.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for the opportunity. I would like to start by sending my heartfelt condolences to people of Nyeri on behalf of my people of Isiolo North and Isiolo County in general. I would like to support the motion. As one of the members representing Asal constituency, I would like to say that climate change is one of the biggest threats to our very existence as people. It undermines our livelihood. As we know, most of the things that we do as economic activities in our country, most of our economic activities are based on natural resources. They are dependent on rainfall, and therefore, they are sensitive to climate variation and climate change. And I would like to add my voice to those members who have spoken before me and who have stated that probably we needed to have this policy a long time ago. I'm sure it has been in draft form for quite some years, but finally it is with us here now. And the best thing that probably as representative of the people we need to do is to applaud it. In Asal, we are facing very frequent droughts whose severity is increasing year after year. When we were growing up, we used to experience drought after every 10 years. The frequency reduced to 5 years, and currently, every year is literally a drought year, especially in pastoral counties of our nation. And looking at the policy paper, it is fortunate that it was tabled before we adjourned the House, and therefore we had adequate opportunity to go through the document. Probably there are a number of areas which the member who spoke before me mentioned, which probably need to be refined further. But generally, since this is the first policy paper on climate change, but there are a lot of good efforts which have been done, especially at micro level. But one thing which has been missing is an overarching policy framework, which ideally should be developed at national level, and it is with us here now. And I'm sure with this framework now, all the stakeholders, governmental and non-governmental, research institutions, and so on and so forth, will have opportunity to contribute towards building resilience of our nation to climate change. Of course, as a country, we are very vulnerable to effects of climate change because everything that we do is affected by negative impacts of climate change. But one important thing which again is highlighted in this policy document, which we need to appreciate, is that not all impacts of climate change are negative. And therefore, as a nation, the policy also encourages us to take advantage of the positive effects of climate change, as few as they are, and so on and so forth. And the beautiful thing which I have seen in this paper also is that unlike past policy papers, it has provided a clear direction in terms of how it's going to be implemented. It's going to be integrated into our planning processes, medium-term planning, including even the budgeting process, and therefore resourcing. Thank you.
Member for Mwingi North, the Honorable Nzengu.
Dr. Waome, the governor of Nyeri County, a person of the caliber of a governor, is an equivalent of the president of a county. And so I send this message to the people of Nyeri County. On the matter of this climate change policy, I want to say that the matters of climate change cannot be any longer trivialized. Where I come from, which is in Mwingi North, when I was growing up, we had predictable seasons when we could say that rain is coming on this month or the other month. But right now, you cannot predict anything about rain. It comes even in September, when it only used to come in October. In October, it used to come at around the date 20th. Today, it can come in November or even in December, and sometimes it does not come. So I want to say that the issues of climate change is really a critical issue in our country. It has both economic, social, and even security impact. As a matter of fact, our neighbors from the side of Somali area, in the past we've lived in harmony, and the only problem that we used to have was banditry and shifters coming to steal cows from Cumberland. Because both of us are heads people, we do keep animals, we do keep cows and goats. But right now, the problem that we have, as I report to this parliament, is a problem of the grazing land. Because of the climate change, the land in the side of Somali has actually degraded so much that there is a section of the borderline between Mwingi North and the borders of...
And we pray that the Heavenly Father is going to give them peace. On this very, very important issue that we are discussing today, on the adoption of the climate change national policy, I want to recognize that Kenya is one of the adequately on agroforestry, especially in counties like Kiambu, where I come from and where I represent, where great acres of agricultural land is being transformed to human habitat zones. We surely do need this policy. And for us to be able to join the rest of the world in the control of hazardous emissions, and to be able to achieve low carbon releases according to the levels expected in the world, even as we look forward to the levels of industrialization that we aspire as a country, we need a guiding principle. And this is the policy that we should be able to adopt as a guiding principle. And for us to be able to harness good health systems, which are going to guide us on the way we shall plan our health systems in Kenya, we need to plan the balance of ecosystems, noting that there are communities that are heavily dependent on ecosystems for their existence, such as the coastal communities and the communities that do live at the periphery of natural forests. These are the communities that are affected by extreme weather conditions, which greatly affect the livelihoods of such communities. We do need this policy so that we can be able to plan reasonably and we can be able to control factors that affect negatively to these ecosystems. And it is because of those very many factors and issues that I've touched on, I rise to support the adoption of the climate change national policy. Thank you very much.
The Honorable Ogutu Abel, member for Bomachoge Borabu.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Let me begin my contribution, first of all, by sharing the experience that has been expressed by my colleagues this afternoon about the sad news of the passing away of the Governor of Nyeri, Dr. Waome Akuru. I think it's most unfortunate, but on behalf of myself and also on behalf of the people of Bomachoge Borabu, I also want to say that may God help the County of Nyeri and the immediate family to recover from the bruises that have been caused by the death of the governor. Mr. Speaker, I want to straight away move to supporting this motion, which I feel is extremely timely. My colleagues may say that it's long overdue, but I think the issue of climate have been rather controversial. And that has given Kenya a base to be able to move gradually to come to appreciate and seriously begin to engage itself to the extent that it's now ready to develop this framework. I support this framework because it touches on very key areas. mainstreaming climate so that it's not an isolated component of our development, mainstreaming climate at all levels, and also trying to engage the various actors, especially mainstreaming gender into climate issues. That to me is a very encouraging component because we know that men, women, youth relate to climate issues differently. And I think I want to appreciate that it's part of Kenya's effort to reflect the seriousness of the nation, that climate change is not less agenda issue. It also, the framework also looks at how to promote green energy. I think we have made good strides in isolation, but I think now we want to consolidate these slides to be able to see how we can tap from hydropower, how we can tap from solar energy in a more organized and also in a much more strategic way. So it is, in a way, it promotes creation of jobs. We know that when we go green, we like it to promote the private sector that will be involved in promotion of various alternative sources of energy, but also will be able to embark much more on how to ensure that the natural resources that promote green energy are also well addressed. Mr. Speaker, I also want to agree that the framework does support its existence in the sense that it's going to build the capacity, promote the database, the generation of information, but also bring on board the various actors who are involved in climate issues. For that case, I want to support this motion, but also rise with the caution, especially in line with one of the issues that has been raised by one of my colleagues. Kenya has recently entered into a carbon world, producing fuel gas. How does this affect us in terms of our focus to promoting green energy? Do we look at this as an alternative opportunity? Do we have enough information to back this as an alternative opportunity? Or do we see this as a golden opportunity that doesn't need to have any competitor? Those are some of the concerns that I may want the paper perhaps to address. With those few remarks, I concur with this policy and therefore support it. Thank you very much.
Member for Funyula.
Mr. Speaker, sir, thank you. I've been waiting the whole afternoon. I was starting to doubt technology. Mr. Speaker, sir, I start, first of all, the subject matter we are discussing now. I rise to support. But before I make any comments, let me join my colleagues, Kenyans, and the people of Nyeri, sending my dear condolences to Dr. Omega Kuru, the governor of Nyeri. On behalf of the people of Funyula, receive our condolences. The same condolences goes to other people who have lost their lives in this month of November, as the Catholics, the month we remember the departed souls. We particularly remember those who have lost their lives as a result of police brutality while exercising their democratic right. On the issue at hand, Mr. Speaker, sir, the question of climatic change has been a thorny issue in the third world. In my years as a lecturer at the University of Nairobi, I've had many occasions to undertake research to ascertain the connection or relationship between climate change and land use conflict. The results have been very clear that unless we address land use, unless we address climatic change, the issue of competition for natural resources, especially nomadic and semi-arid areas, are going to become a social and security issue. Therefore, the policy is timely, and we hope, like many other cases, is not going to rot in the shelves, but there are going to be measures or intervention plans to ensure that what is provided for is implemented in all aspects of our life. I particularly want to draw the attention that when you were young, in my constituency of Funyula, we had predictable weather patterns. But of late, crop failure as a result of lack of rain has become an issue that keeps on repeating each year. Of course, as a community, we want to commend the youths who have taken up upon themselves to ensure that trees are planted and avoid a rapid rate of deforestation. We believe, of course, we need to address the issues at hand, and I sincerely wish the ministry will liaise with the county governments, since most of environmental issues fall within the purview of the county governments, so that all these proposals are implemented. I beg to support, Mr. Speaker, sir.
Very well. Members, in accordance with the rules, I will now call upon the mover to reply.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I beg to reply, and maybe in the process, I would give Honorable Beatrice 1 minute.
Very well.
Yeah.
The Honorable Toom was also interested. You could donate 1 minute to her also.
Who? Honorable?
The Honorable Toom.
Toom.
If she's interested.
And Honorable Toom, 1 minute. Okay.
I can see
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for the opportunity.
Right.
I also thank Honorable Naomi for giving me that 1 minute. Mr. Speaker, this is a very important policy because the Kenyan people, we need a framework that needs to guide us on how to handle climate change. Climate change, Mr. Speaker, affects all sectors of every area, and this includes health, agriculture, trade, tourism, and many more. So with this kind of a policy, all stakeholders can focus on how to protect the climate systems so that it can be able to benefit the present generation and the future generations. Mr. Speaker, I support with those few remarks. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir. I beg to reply. First of all, I want to take this opportunity to thank all our colleagues for the input they've given to this sessional paper, number 5 of 2016 on national climate change framework policy. Mr. Speaker, sir, it is obvious that climate change has been a big problem the world over. Many conferences, people have sat down to discuss issues, and Kenya government has decided to put in a policy so that we can encompass all the issues that have been raised, not only locally, but internationally also. We are part and parcel of the agreements which have been signed at the UN level and many other forums. But Mr. Speaker, sir, what I need to say, it is important for us to be able to plan, to budget, to educate our people on this issue. And even, Mr. Speaker, sir, some of the climatic changes that we face can certainly, as much as they're being tackled at the national level, they can also be tackled individually. Issues like taking care of our environment, keeping our environment clean, having to plant trees, to have a 10% cover for our country, issues that need to be on sensitization level are issues which can be dealt with quite easily if we are all committed to this. Mr. Speaker, sir, this policy paper is very comprehensive. It does not only talk about planning and budgeting, it also talks about the research and the technology so that our government can be able to carry out all these commitments, to carry them out comprehensively. So this paper has come in at quite a good time, although in terms of the problems we have, in terms of the floods, in terms of the drought, in terms of all the changes that we have, especially attacking Kenya. And more so, the biggest threat we have is that Kenya is becoming more arid and more arid as we go on. Mr. Speaker, sir, I beg to move.
Very well. Members, for obvious reasons, we will not put the question. I will direct that we move to the next business, to the next order. Next order.
Order number 9, the Fiscal Planning Bill, National Assembly Bill number 34 of 2017, second reading.
Proceed.
Mr. Speaker, can we defer order number 9?
Very well. We shall defer order number 9. I direct that order number 9 is deferred, and I direct that we move to the next business. The Honorable Tobiko, we shall be moving to the motion for adjournment, and which I believe is your motion.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Speaker, for this opportunity. Mr. Speaker, I know it's really a lot of consideration by this House to adjourn all other business to discuss this particular matter, a matter that is of grave concern, Mr. Speaker, to all the Kenyan people, Mr. Speaker. And as I had earlier stated while moving the motion, Mr. Speaker, that there has been conflict, ongoing conflict between the herders, the private ranchers, and security agencies, Mr. Speaker. And this has contributed to a lot of loss of life and also now loss of livestock, Mr. Speaker. And Mr. Speaker, at this particular time, when drought is already hitting hard on our people, it was very unfortunate to continue losing livestock in unnecessary ways, Mr. Speaker. Because, Mr. Speaker, it is natural to lose livestock through drought, but it is very painful to lose livestock through the gun. Mr. Speaker, the pain, the anger, the despair, and frustration that this atrocious act has caused to all the pastoralist communities is unthinkable. It's unimaginable, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, there have been a lot of hue and cry. And particularly, Mr. Speaker, whereas the drought has forced the pastoralists into very difficult circumstances across the country, in all parts, Mr. Speaker, and we are all suffering from different directions. Just the other day, Mr. Speaker, livestock from Kajiado County that crossed the border to Tanzania were auctioned by the Tanzanian government, around 1,300 and that kind of number, Mr. Speaker. And we are still going through the pain and the trauma of losing that livestock. And back at home, Mr. Speaker, here in our own country, that our own security agents will take their guns that have been bought using taxpayers' money to kill our livestock, to sabotage our economy, an economy that we have depended upon, Mr. Speaker. Passionate wildlife activists, elephants, lions, hyenas, goats, zebras, are all competing for the same space, Mr. Speaker. Laikipia has profound inequalities, Mr. Speaker, in land ownership, with 40.3% of the land being controlled only by 48 individuals, Mr. Speaker. But even with this kind of inequality, Mr. Speaker, it has been apparent that the ranchers cannot countenance the idea of ever giving up the giant parcels of land to the original owners, Mr. Speaker. Some have been offloading the land to other rich people, some of whom are foreigners, Mr. Speaker, while top business Thank you.
you know, one would wonder whether the sabotage begins from here. Mr. Speaker, political elites, business people in the country have also increasingly acquired land there. Thousands of herders who are being chased by the drought, and I blame this situation entirely on the drought, Mr. Speaker, in Laikipia. The herders are being pushed by the biting drought, Mr. Speaker. They've invaded farms, ranches, and wildlife conservancies, Mr. Speaker. But, Mr. Speaker, the key thing is how our security forces to deal with this situation, Mr. Speaker. Because, Mr. Speaker, one wrong cannot correct another wrong. A bullet on a cow will not be able to solve the situation, Mr. Speaker. The conflict between the pastoralists and the ranchers is bound to escalate as drought ravages large parts of the country. And as more pastoral land, Mr. Speaker, is converted into conservancies. But once it rains normally, Mr. Speaker, the pastoralists always go back to their areas of abode in peace. And I underline, in peace. They always go back in peace. The community has many adaptation measures to cope with the impact of climate extremes, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, it has just been discussed in the immediate motion on the effects of climate change that, Mr. Speaker, we will need to address as a country, not just the large-scale polluters of environment, but also even to the grassroots level. And we need to sensitize our communities, Mr. Speaker. This persistent drought has resulted to continued violence, which has been witnessed in Laikipia County, where there is always a direct confrontation between the herders and the security forces, who are all drawn from the police units and also sometimes from the Kenya Defense Forces. This confrontation has led to a loss of thousands of livestock, thousands, Mr. Speaker, of lives of people. Mr. Speaker, this is a situation that I'm asking this Honorable House to address. Mr. Speaker, this has been particularly seen in a number of conservancies in Laikipia, Ratia, Muge, Sosion, and Suyan, where many animals have been shot by the officers. Mr. Speaker, nothing, and I will repeat nothing, and absolutely nothing justifies the horrific massacre of innocent sacred animals. I call them sacred, Mr. Speaker, because the cow, Mr. Speaker, to some communities, some of Indian origin, is a god. To our people, the cow is everything. The cow is school fees, the cow is food. The cow is basically everything that you can think of, Mr. Speaker. And so, killing of livestock, Mr. Speaker, has no justification. Madam Speaker, I recognize your presence, Madam Speaker. And I would say there was a write-up, a cry by a certain girl called Joy Kakenya Enolebata. I have no proper way of putting her cry, Madam Speaker, because it is in mother tongue, and maybe a lot of people in this house may not be able to get the deep pain of the girl. But I hope today on this floor, I'm able to speak for her. I'm able to speak for others, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, Madam Speaker, sorry. Not everything, and I also want to quote somebody who wrote on social media, Mr. William Lasoi Kipintoi, that not everything done should be viewed in terms of fighting the government, Madam Speaker. Some mistakes that have remedy in the law must be allowed
to roll out without political connotations and without big brother patronage kind of approach. Madam Speaker, as I conclude, the TJRC report that used a lot of taxpayers' money, Madam Speaker, it is high time this House revisits and implements the TJRC reports. As the land leases expire in Laikipia, Madam Speaker,
an extra minute to
Thank you, Madam Speaker. This was very important to me, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I was just saying that as the land leases expire in Laikipia and also across the country, Madam Speaker, land should revert back to the communities, to the original owners, Madam Speaker. And my hope and prayer is that land in Laikipia will be reverted back to the indigenous Laikipia Maasai, who are the rightful owners of those ranches today, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I thank you for this opportunity.
Well, Honorable Peris, I think your time is up, or? There's no seconder for this kind of motion, so we are just going to go into allowing the members who have made their requests to go ahead to make their contributions. And I'll just go on to remind everyone as we go into these contributions or debates on this matter of very serious public interest. We have 5 minutes, so members should utilize their time well. I'll start with the Honorable Kimilu Joshua. Member for Kaiti. Is that you? Go ahead. Go ahead, Mheshimiwa.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, for the chance you have given me to contribute on this motion. And before I contribute, I want to join my colleagues, send my condolences to the family of the Governor of Nyeri. I learned the death this morning, and I contribute, and I want to encourage the family and tell them that my family and the people of Kaiti are with them in prayers on this trying moment. Let me take the same opportunity to contribute on this motion about the loss of livestock. It has been a challenge to this country because, Madam Speaker, we know that there are some communities who depend on livestock, and this border is to make sure that there is no any loss of livestock through our neighbors. Because, Madam Speaker, we know that this issue of boundaries is something we need to handle it with a lot of care, because if, as a country, we leave it to the hands of our neighbors, Madam Speaker, I think it will be, give this country a loss and will affect our economy. So, Madam Speaker, I take this opportunity to stand and support this motion because it's a very important one, and I stand with those communities, and we need to get a solution. And as a member of Parliament of Kaiti, I say I stand to support the motion. Thank you.
The Honourable Member for Mwingi Central, Mulyungi.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I rise to empathize with these sad affairs which occurred, and therefore empathize with those who lost their animals. As we all know, livestock is life in our culture all over Kenya, and it is a center of our hearts. We wake up with animals, domestic animals. We sleep with them. We even take care of them during the day, grazing them. And therefore, loss of even one cow is a very serious business in the villages. Madam Speaker, livestock gives us food, gives us milk, gives us even manure, and also even gives us money for paying school fees and even feeding ourselves. And therefore, it's a driver of our economy. And losing over 300 cows is nothing small. That's a loss of over close to 20 million shillings, and 20 million shillings in the villages is a lot of money. Madam Speaker, this matter, in my own view, has affected many families. It has affected both the old and the young. And it is very, very sad for those who are supposed to guard us to turn the bullet on us and on our animals. I take great exception to this. One would ask a basic question: why should an officer go on Besak instead of dealing with the cattle rustlers, vet their anger on animals? An animal is innocent, and therefore should not be killed because of cattle rustling. They should actually struggle to save the animal, because the animal is harmless. Madam Speaker, killing a cow is like killing our livelihood, especially where I come from. You kill my cow, I kill you. There's no two ways about it. It's very dangerous to do that. And I find this completely unacceptable. And I stand with the Maasais who lost their animals. This is madness. It is irresponsible. And those who killed those animals must be held to account, irrespective of who they are. So, Madam Speaker, I'm not sure whether those guys have been arrested, whether they are police officers or not. They should be looked for where they are and handcuffed, taken to police cells, whether they are policemen or not, and arraigned in court for killing innocent animals. Madam Speaker, finally I urge the government, as we punish those who did this heinous act, we should look at how we are going to compensate the families which were affected by this act. And I rise to support my colleague, Madam Tobiko, on this matter of national interest, which should actually be treated as a matter of national interest and dealt as such. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
The Honorable David Sankok, nominated member from Narok.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker, for giving me this opportunity. And Uganda, from the Maasais of Tanzania, from even people from Sudan, the pastoralists from Sudan, Ethiopia, and Somalia, they are mourning with us because this is a great loss to the Maasai people. Because for us, a cow is not just a cow. We have a social attachment to cows. And when we kill our cows, it is not only ignorant, but it's also retrogressive, unpalatable, ignominious, and stupid. For those human beings who are involved in the killing of animals, they have stooped so low to reduce themselves to the reasoning of animals. because animals don't decide where to invade. Cattle cannot decide that today they will invade this particular farm. It is human beings who may decide to invade which ranch or which farm. Now, when human beings in the name of security agencies take guns and shoot animals who are very innocent, we have had policemen saying, we shot and they return fire. I don't know if these cows actually return fire, but it was really something that as a man nation, we are mourning because of that. Now, Madam Speaker, we are asking that there must be a lasting solution. Because if there is no lasting solution, then there will be perennial conflict between the pastoralists, the farmers, and the ranchers. Because this happened around 3 months ago, and a number of livestock were still killed. As a Maha nation and as leaders from the Maasai community and pastoralist community, we kept quiet. We thought that there will be a lasting solution, only to be repeated within 3 months. And that is why we are demanding that we want a lasting solution to be found. And the lasting solution, first of all, will be by compensation of the families affected, because they have lost their livelihood. But for us, compensation is not enough. As I said earlier, we have social attachment to these animals. So we also demand an apology from the security agencies, probably through Boynet, and an apology from the ranchers and the guards who are guarding that ranch. Madam Speaker, as Honorable Peris Tobiga have said, and a lasting solution. Madam Speaker, there is also another lasting solution. We should find ways of mitigating drought. Because without drought, our conflict between the ranchers and the pastoralists is limited. So as a government, we will request the government to mitigate this drought through insurance, or what we call livestock insurance. This was economic sabotage, only equivalent to the economic sabotage that I've heard of people resisting Safaricom and boycotting Safaricom. I don't know how do you boycott Safaricom, because Safaricom sells airwaves. Those M-Pesa shops are owned by normal Kenyans. Those SIM cards are sold by normal Kenyans. Safaricom only sell airwaves. So I don't know if they are boycotting the airwaves. You know, you cannot boycott the airwaves. Thank you very much, Madam Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Laikipia West, Honourable Marido.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. Thank you for this opportunity. I stand here because this matter really touches my constituency, Laikipia West, and Laikipia County as a whole. And I'm very delighted that this motion and this matter has come to the table this afternoon. Let me start by saying that it is very unfortunate that we have had cows from Kenyans being shot and being caught in the crossfire between illegal and armed herders and members of our security agencies. It's very unfortunate. But it is important, Madam Speaker, for us as Kenyans and as members in this House to understand the context of this matter. Because this matter is not a matter of yesterday or last week. It is a matter that has been there for many years. And it is very good that it has found its way into this House. It is also coming at a backdrop of an initiative by our governor and ourselves as leaders from Laikipia, from Samburu, from Baringo, and have had 2 meetings in Nyahururu to discuss about peace and peaceful coexistence between our people, the 5 counties in our region, Baringo, Isiolo, Samburu, and Laikipia. So it's very unfortunate this is coming at in the backdrop of that. But we have to ask ourselves very hard questions, Madam Speaker. In my mind, I've been asking myself, And this is not a discussion about the Kikuyus versus the Saburus versus the Pokots, the Pokots versus the Maasai. I think it's a regional issue, it's a Kenyan issue, it's an issue of Laikipia, of Saburu and Isiolo, and it should not degenerate to tribal or community discussion or conversation. It's an issue that needs to be discussed rather soberly. But I have few questions to ask myself, and Kenyans should ask themselves. One of the questions I've been asking, who are actually the owners of these cattle and cows coming to Laikipia? How powerful are they that even after being driven out by the security agencies, in a few weeks or in a few days, those cows find themselves back to Laikipia County? Who actually owns these cows? That's the first question. How comes those herders come and look for pasture, and we do understand that there has been drought across the country. How comes those who come for pasture in Laikipia come when they are armed with guns, with AK-47, with other very sophisticated weapons? Who speaks for the OCS from Rumuti, who just 3 months ago was shot by illegal herders, having thousands and thousands of cows? Who speaks for the 6 police officers from my region in Matweku area who are shot by illegal herders with guns and were shot dead? Their families are suffering today. Who speaks for the 3,000 small-scale farmers whose maize, whose beans, whose tomatoes, whose sugarcane, whose bananas have actually been wowed up by thousands of cows? And these are discussions for all of us. Who speaks for the 50 Kenyans in Laikipia who have actually been killed in the last 1 year? In fact, 80 injured in the last 1 year. Madam Speaker, I think these are questions. Who speaks for that young lady in Matweku who was raped in the presence of the family by illegal herders? These are the hard questions for us as a House, for Honorable Tobiko, for all of us as a House. And Madam Speaker, because I want to end, I will beg that you add me, because this touches in Laikipia, touches matters in Laikipia. Please add me 1.5 minutes, if you don't mind. Now, I've heard Madam Honorable Tobiko saying that there are historical issues. How comes the discussion here today, it's about who owned Laikipia? Who, Madam Speaker, who are you talking of? Are you talking?
Honorable, I think raise her point of order and also afford Honorable Mariro an extra minute to finalize his contribution. Honorable Paris.
Madam Speaker, Madam Speaker, early from Isiolo, they could be owned by a Samburu or an indigenous Laikipia or a Kikuyu. The question, Madam Speaker, that I have raised on this floor is why kill livestock by the bullet? Were they armed? Were these cows armed, Madam Speaker? I think the member is trying to bring sideshows and justifying on possibly who has been giving orders to the security agents.
Honorable members, I've heard you, Honorable Paris. I know the matter is of very it's emotive, it's of great public interest, but I'm sure we are all able to handle it in a very sober manner, such that we express our concerns, because this is a very critical mandate that we have as the members of this House to be able to discuss matters of interest to our constituents. So let us do it within the confines of the order of the House and restrict ourselves to the matters at hand and let sobriety reign in our debates. Honorable Mariro, 1 minute.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. It can't be sideshows, really, Madam Speaker. When, Madam, and I don't want to revisit that, when Honorable Tobiko says that the land in Laikipia must be returned to the original owners, I think there needs to be a bigger discussion. it almost makes me to think it is a scrabble for Laikipia, where the Laikipians have been set aside. Other people are discussing. And the cows, I must go on record. We cannot condone the killing of cows. But we also need to discuss these things in a global manner. When the illegal herders hide themselves in the cows and shoot at the police, what do you expect the police to do? And I'm saying, even if it is one cow, we must say in no uncertain terms that it is not acceptable to shoot at cows. But we must understand the circumstances, and we must look at these things in a global, more comprehensive, the small farmers, the police who have lost their lives, the OCS who have been shot, all those issues must be looked at. And when we are talking about compensation, that farmer in Matueku needs to be compensated. And so that we look, and moving forward, Madam Speaker, I think for us as leaders, we must join hands and fight a solution, not for Laikipia, but for the entire region. Madam Speaker, I thank you.
The Honorable Jessica Mbalu, member for Kibwezi East. Honorable, sorry, I think you have it now.
Yeah, Madam Speaker, I did not raise maybe an interest to contribute on this, but I must support the motion through the Member of Parliament that we should not allow killing of those cows. It is important to consider that cows are very important in some parts of this country, and it is a matter of national importance. Let us not separate. Cows are everywhere. And so I really want to imagine, let us not separate our debate and take it to regions, but we talk it as it was brought, as a matter of national importance. It is a matter that is affecting everybody. And I do agree with you, Madam Speaker, that we should have sobriety in the debate so that we can solve this matter once and for all. And so I must congratulate the Honorable Madam Peris, who brought this motion. It is a motion that we need all to discuss about it, come up with solutions. The right departments should be able to address this matter. And so I thank you.
The Honorable Musa Lentoimanga, Samburu North.
Thank you so much, Madam Speaker, for giving me this opportunity. Madam Speaker, this is a very emotive matter, and it has touched a lot of us, and it came by surprise. Herders are the people who are herding in Laikipia that particular day, are people who are Kenyans, people who respect the rule of law. It's not true that they were armed. They were not armed. We know these people. There were only 2 young men who were looking after the cows, and two armored personnel carriers confronted them. They shot in the air, and then the herders ran away. When they ran away, the second armored personnel carrier started shooting the animals. And they were not in a ranch in the first place. They were not in a ranch. They were in open community land, which had no crops at all. There were no crops there. And it is unethical. It is criminal to kill animals. The animals were not armed. In the first place, no particular pastoralist was hiding behind the cows to shoot policemen. Police just used excessive powers, which is unnecessary. We are not saying that we should invade ranches or invade small-scale farmers' land. No, we are not there to do that. This particular group of pastoralists actually were migrating. They were dipping their cows so that they moved back to their home, and they were caught unawares. They were not ready to confront the police at all. They were migrating, going away. Now, this particular issue is very emotive, and we want to call the government to take action, to investigate first. We want the IPOA actually to go into the deep on this issue, so that we can have an independent report. There are so many social media statements which are going around in this country, and I think that they are not helping us at all. Instead, they are making it more emotional, more active. So we need to ensure that a new independent investigation is done. Secondly, this is life and death for our people. We don't depend on anything. We depend on animals, those animals. Like my members have said, we use animals to sell, to get fees, school fees, to get health care, to get food, and even to shelter. Anything else is, anything that we depend on is the animals. It's just like somebody who has coffee, somebody who has maize, somebody who has cotton, somebody who has tea. We depend on this one wholly. So this particular destruction or killing of animals is destruction of our livelihoods. One particular family lost 120 cows. Can you imagine? Now the old man is already in the hospital, plus their wife. What can we tell about such a people? So we want the government to do compensation. Whether we are going to do compensation for the crops also, that's not our matter. Our matter is that these particular cows, and it's not just this 300. Even before the election, another 600 were massacred in the same area. So it's a continuous thing. Policemen should be arrested, the ones who broke the law, because they did it intentionally. I don't know. When we met the IG, he said he's not aware. When we met the DIG, he says he's not aware. We don't know what's so particular about Laikipia. Is there no law and order? Don't police use normal procedures of doing operation in Laikipia? Even in Samburu North, where we have sometimes cattle rustling, we have never witnessed policemen shooting cows. What they do is confiscate and wait for the owner to come and claim the animals, and then they arrest him and take him to court. Not killing cows. This is very painful, and we want to call the government to compensate these animals and these families so that they can be able to go on with their lives like any other Kenyans. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Let's have the Honorable Chumel Moroto of Kapenguria.
Asante sana, Madam Speaker, kwa kunipa nafasi ili pia niweke wazo langu juu ya hoja ambayo iko mbele yetu. Nataka kulaani kitendo ambayo ilifanyika ya kuua mnyama. Nataka niulize wale ambao wanahusika hata na wanyama. Kuna watu ambao wanafanya kazi ya wanyama. Kuna human rights pia, alafu wale wengine. Kwa sababu hii si mara ya kwanza na imekuwa katika hiyo eneo. Madam Speaker, sisi wengine tunatoka mahali imekuwa na shida ya usalama kwa muda. Kiangalia Turkana, Pokot, Karamojong, Sebei, hata upande wa Trans Nzoia. Madam Speaker, hatujafika kiwango ambacho tumeona. Kuna hata operations ya 1984. Ile ya serikali iliweka ilikuwa inaitwa Nyundu Operation. Watu ndio walikuwa